Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and folks, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Hope the weekend and all of the festivities are treating you well. I'm sure it treated you even better in what was pretty, well, I'm not going to say a meaningless game because obviously it meant something to the players who were playing. Quite a few substitutes getting some time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course the Cleveland Browns with only one win. They don't want to lose to some backups, but Cleveland being Cleveland, that's exactly what they did in a 27-24 overtime thriller where we saw Heinz Field, pretty much, if you listened, it was crickets from the first quarter on through to screams in overtime. This game had a little bit of everything, and by a little bit of everything, it was how many different ways can the Cleveland Browns lose a football game? They were easily up 14-0, a little bit worrisome against a lot of players that look like the starting defense, and I'll address that real quick here by saying, well, Jarvis Jones flashed at times, but Jarvis Jones is still Jarvis Jones. You're playing a lot with Ricardo Matthews, who ended up getting hurt. That is a concern as far as defensive line depth heading forward, but Stephon Tuitt should be back for this playoff game, which is now set for Sunday at 1:05. It's in Pittsburgh with the Steelers hosting the Miami Dolphins, so that's Sunday basically at 1 o'clock, your regular bat time, regular bat schedule. So looking forward to the Miami Dolphins, who did not have a very good game against the New England Patriots, getting blown out. I don't know, what was the final score? Like 35. I have it here. 35-14. And we'll get to that. That's maybe in a whole other episode talking about the Dolphins, but talking about the Browns here. The Browns, like I was saying, up 2 touchdowns already, 14 points, 14-0. Steelers offense couldn't get anything going. The offensive line, who probably wanted this sack record that they went into this game with, and they ended up giving up 4, and they didn't achieve this. And one of those was a really crappy Landry Jones trips over Marcus Gilbert's foot in the third quarter, which was kind of almost looking like, well, this is Landry Jones. I know there's a lot of Landry Jones hate and a lot of Landry Jones scapegoating on through halftime there. As I said, a little bit on Twitter, and of course Terry Fletcher doing some of the tweeting live too, and some sarcasm there too, because I know, and talking to her with Terry always joins us for the WTF version of the podcast in the middle of the week, and we'll have plenty of those for this week too, a lot of firings and maybe potential hirings around the league. But I think you have to give the Steelers, especially the coaching staff, a lot of credit here. The defense and the offense both make the adjustments at halftime, and Mike Tomlin now, well, here's some stats for you before we get into how the Browns totally blew this game. The Steelers are the only team in 2016, the 2016 season, of course, with the game being played yesterday on New Year's Day 2017, but you get the point. They have not allowed an opponent to have a touchdown on their first offensive possession in all 16 of their regular season games. Also, let's see, I had a few others, headlines just pulled here as far as statistics with Mike Tomlin in his coaching record. And of course, when you need technology to work, technology doesn't work. Oh, I come across the Miami game information again. Phil Simms back, for those of you who want to listen to him. Might want to turn on Steelers Nation Radio. Here we go. Mike Tomlin has led the Steelers to at least 11 wins for the 5th time in his 10 seasons as a head coach. So that's half of the time he's had at least 11 wins. Give the guy some credit. 103 wins ties him with John Madden as the 4th most by a head coach for their first 10 seasons in NFL history. And the Steelers have scored at least 45 touchdowns in 3 consecutive seasons for the first time in franchise history. That's some credit to Todd Haley, who also gets quite a bit of shade thrown his way. So let's talk about how the Browns blow this game. Excuse me. So, Robert Griffin III finds Ryan Shazier as the Browns are driving to go up a third score, possibly 21-14. So they blow it there. Change of possession. And then the Steelers still don't do a whole lot of anything. And the Browns receive the ball back. And this is something, too. Nearly get a safety. The pressure coming up the middle. The offensive line. They just couldn't figure it out in the first half. I'm not sure what was going on. Landry Jones gets sacked because B.J. Finney was just kind of standing there. And then the Browns go and do it again, except they rush the opposite gap on the second series that the Steelers had. So practically the same play, 2 results, same thing in a row, third down. Steelers were awful at third down. It took them, they went 0 for 9 before they actually started getting any, and then they went 3 for 6. And, of course, following 2 of those third downs where they didn't convert, they ended up getting a 4th down conversion for a perfect 2 for 2. So we're just going to say they converted the first downs in the second half all but 1 of the times when they were up against it. Yeah, that's a little bit of manipulating statistics, but you know what? I'll take it. I like it. We like the result, right? I was always wondering, like, what would happen if you sat, like, some of these players? And I know it's Cleveland Browns. I know by default they're going to get the first pick in next year's NFL draft. Well, in the next NFL draft, we are already into the next year. So the Browns are, by default, the worst team in the NFL. They only have 1 victory. Only one team is just as bad, which is the San Francisco 49ers, and they fired Chip Kelly. So, I mean, the Browns had some building blocks. They had a lot of stumbles. They have some things to build on. They had a lot of stumbles and a lot of problems with quarterbacks early on in the year. And I think they finally got some continuity there toward the end of the season. But the Browns being the Browns, they get the ball again to have an opportunity to maybe seal the deal on this game. And Robert Griffin III, it was a high snap. It's the first time they moved the center, Cam Irving, over to right tackle. The Browns did, because he wasn't good as a center, so they bring in this other guy that was undrafted previously on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. He'd been on the Browns practice squad, called up to the active roster recently. And if his name's Fabiano, and I'm trying to think what went from Harvard or some Ivy League school or something like that. And he snaps the ball like practically over RG3's head. RG3 tries to get the ball back. At least he wasn't Cam Newton and just stared at his ankles or something. And I believe it was Ryan Shazier who just sweeps in and scoops up this ball. And what a game by Shazier. What a game by Sean Davis. These guys creating turnovers, getting sacks. I mean, they look like every bit as superstars as we expected. William Gay and Artie Burns having solid games. So did Ross Cockrell. He had a nice knockaway on a would-be third down conversion, bats the ball down. Artie Burns nearly has a pick 6 himself. He jumped a nice route. William Gay, well, we're going to get into that in a second, but William Gay also almost had one right in the early series, and then he had a big play late as well. So RG3 coughs up this ball. The Steelers get the ball roughly midfield in less than a minute or so. And the Steelers run their, under 2-minute drill. And Landry Jones takes them all the way down the field, and they score a touchdown. So, in the grand scheme of things, Steelers score in the second half, or in the second quarter with 39 seconds remaining. And they go on to score 21 unanswered points as the momentum shifts. You have D'Angelo Williams scoring both of those touchdowns, one rushing, one receiving. And then Landry Jones finds a nice little crossing pattern from DeMarcus Ayers, who had a nice game. If he could have got his tiptoes in, didn't he look like another clone of Antonio Brown out there at times? He didn't make the tiptoe on the one. That was the series with the near safeties that, geez, your head was ready to explode. You're lucky D'Angelo Williams got back to not even really the line of scrimmage, just past the goal line, so it wasn't a 2-point. It's going over to the Cleveland Browns. And then Landry Jones throws a beautiful pass toward the sideline, and DeMarcus Ayers holds on to it, but the edge of his toes touches just a little bit of the paint on the sideline, and the Steelers have to punt from there. And punting was huge, too, because, Jordan Berry, near the end of that game, too, he bombed a 61-yard punt, and I'd have to go back through this whole possession chart again just to find what Barry had for his other one, because it was just incredible. Yeah, of course, I don't have it broken out right here. It was incredible. He kicks a 61-yarder and then essentially kicks another 60-some-yard punt after a penalty, and he's forced to kick it again. So Barry also pretty big in this game as well. The Steelers themselves, though, those 21 points, the defense pretty much, they had it somewhat figured out. The Browns end up coming back. They score a touchdown. They knot this game up. But the Browns just being the Browns, holy cow, they miss a field goal. They get an interception off of Landry Jones, and this really looks like the one that would be the nail in the coffin. And I got to rewatch a little bit of this, the condensed version of this game, and skipping around and fast-forwarding to catch some bullet points for this show. And the guys on TV, the commentary, they end up saying Mike Tomlin would be upset with the lack of hustle and people coming back. Well, people were running back, but you had some guys that went deep as far as the wide receivers on the play. Both, in fact, either of the guys that I think it was intended for Eli Rogers, and DeMarcus Ayers was in the area of where it was intercepted. But it was Darius Hayward-Bay who comes all the way from the opposite side of the field. And I'm going to give Big Al, Alejandro Villanueva, and B.J. Finney some credit here, too, because those guys hustled downfield. But Big Al, you can imagine somebody blocking Big Al, but he's still got kind of he's not a fast guy, obviously. So he did at least get slowed down, I'm going to say, because the block was just like, it was like hitting a brick wall when you run into Big Al. But DHB comes all the way back down the field, and this is practically where I sit at Heinz Field. So I'm like, feet from it. I could see it clearly. The ball never crosses the goal line. DHB ends up punching that out. And the best part is that it stays in play, and Landry Jones is in the back of the end zone because he hustled back from his own mistake, and he's the only guy smart enough to dive on the football. You got to give him credit just for that alone, folks. I was just talking about how RG3 was incapable of diving on a loose ball himself. It's not like there were a bunch of people around Landry Jones, but there was anybody who could have dove on that like a grenade. It was Landry Jones that did it. So Landry Jones, he has one for the ages here because this is the Steelers. I mean, Kobe Hamilton, clutch game. DeMarcus Ayers, clutch game. Eli Rogers, clutch game. You can't say enough about any of these receivers. They all had great games. D'Angelo Williams even running for 67 yards and also adding 3 catches for 27. So he scores twice, but Kobe Hamilton targeted 4 times, 3 for 54, almost all at the end. The guy just moves the chains again on a third down, very clutch. You also have the Steelers going for it at the end there on 4th and 2, and DeMarcus Ayers just coming across the screen, just coming across the field again. I say the screen because I was watching it on my iPad. And it's just incredible to see both of those plays develop. The offensive line totally getting it in gear, keeping Landry clean. There's the three guys along the right side of the line just create a wall right there on that 4th down play. And then unlike the Browns had the opportunity in the red zone. They get 2 penalties on 3rd downs. They get one where I think it was Ross Cockrell gets called for a holding. And then the other one, which was 2 different and once again, folks, here we go again this week. I had to bring this up. The face masks, missed face masks. So we have another situation where the official saw part of the face mask, but the worst one was Mike Mitchell got like his head almost ripped off. They should have been offsetting penalties, replay the down. Very simple if you ask me. Instead, Browns get new life. They get this 1st and goal and sudden death where a touchdown will win from like the 2-yard line. And they go to throw this like little screen pass. And William Gay just stuffs up the lane. And all of a sudden it's, I'm trying to think who had this, if this was Hawkins or Coleman. They get backed up to like the 16-yard line as the end result. Even LT Walton was right there. What a huge play. And then on the very next set of play, within the same series, they nearly get like completely backed out of field goal range. It's almost unbelievable that the Browns can do this. I have several friends that are Cleveland Browns fans. The usual listeners know that my wife is also a Browns fan. When they're up 14-0, she's sending a group text to those of us that are there at the game and a few other family members that are Steelers fans sitting at home and trying to, egg us on. It's looking good from where we're at. This is a Browns party. I'm like, hey, there's lots of time left. And I even had a friend of mine who now lives in Pittsburgh, but he's a transplant. He's a Pens fan, so you can't completely be upset at him, but he's still a Cleveland guy too at heart. But he didn't come to this game thinking anything was a big deal, and he's even saying, he's like, it's pretty pathetic. We'll probably lose to your backups. No Marquise Pouncey, no Big Ben, no Le'Veon Bell, no AB, and 4 Pro Bowlers out on offense, and you're replacing 4 out of 11 starters. You still have some young guys like DeMarcus Ayers, who's not really it's like his 3rd game ever in the NFL. Kobe Hamilton's been here half a season. Eli Rogers, his first full season after going undrafted. And so you got these type of guys plug and played into the lineup. D'Angelo Williams, who was banged up and hadn't played it for all intents and purposes, played like 2-3 games this year. So he was obviously rusty to start this whole thing out. And even with like 1 minute and 4 left or whatever, and the Browns have a chance to close this out in regulation. And, this is where the one fumble happens. Jarvis Jones pokes it out. Mike Mitchell comes out of the pile with it. That too was like on like the 4-yard line or something like that. I get it. The Browns are trying to run the ball, run the clock, kick the field goal, win the game. But still, the Browns being the Browns, and that's exactly what my buddy says. He says he gets texted, we're going to win. It's somebody else that's a Browns fan texting him. And he goes, there's still 1 minute and 4 left. And, he's saying it very comically. But I feel bad. It's for all the people who hate on players. Like, a lot of people don't like Landry Jones. They want to see him gone. Oh, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. Okay, reserve that opinion just for a second. You see, they say the same type of stuff about Mike Tomlin, Todd Haley. Can you imagine going 1-15, going to overtime after you just won your first game for the year and losing to the Steelers, essentially the Steelers' backups? I know most of the defensive players were in there, but you know what? James Harrison wasn't at all. He sat the whole game. Jarvis Jones, this is the story of Jarvis Jones. Bats down a pass. 2nd down, totally misses getting off his block and allows a big hole, and Corral goes like halfway down the field and nearly scores there. And how about that? At least stopping players short of all of that. But the Browns end up having to kick a field goal. They're nearly out of field goal range. Landry Jones comes back out, and like I said before, he comes down 5 of 7 on this drive. They convert on 4th and 2, and on the very next play, Todd Haley, Mike Tomlin, pedal to the metal, Landry Jones. Let's go back to Kobe Hamilton again. And Jones had several deep passes that were on the money or near catchable, and they knew that they were eventually going to – it's not a high percentage play. One thing you have to understand is when you see this and you're like, with the exception of the one where it looks like DeMarcus Ayers and or Landry Jones, because, they're both inexperienced players. We'll call them what they are. It just didn't look like they were on the same page. But for all the other ones, you have to understand that Ben Roethlisberger completes the highest percentage of these passes downfield beyond X amount of yards. I'd have to get the exact stat for you. But these big throws downfield, he's the most accurate guy downfield in the NFL and practically in NFL history, believe it or not. So when you're used to seeing this from Ben, nobody else does this. And I'm going to quote Charlie Batch from his post-game show, too, because they had asked about him being a backup, et cetera, et cetera. And even Charlie Batch said, he goes, I'm not Ben Roethlisberger, and not many people are. I understood that. And the Steelers coaching staff understood that, and they knew exactly what the strengths were for Landry. And like I said, I didn't think they were going to put a cork on it at all. Landry 24-37, very commendable because, like I said, one of those throws was one that ended up being an out of bounds. So there were a couple there that were, and then there was a drop or two. You had a drop by D-Will. You had a drop by Ayers they should have had, and that one would have converted as well. But Landry, 64.9% completion percentage. That's on par, better than what the NFL's MVP was last year. He throws for 3 touchdowns on 277 yards, and he had the 1 pick. Interceptions happen. He had a better game than RG3. RG3 did complete 72.5%, but he threw for 232, 2 TDs, and 1 pick, and he had a 92.9 quarterback rating. Not too shabby. Landry Jones leads this team to victory. That's probably a pretty good surprise. We talked a lot about the offense, but the defense also getting it done as well as, I don't even say the special teams. The special teams, with most of these guys playing on defense and playing a full game, a few maybe, and I don't think there was really anybody on special teams that was a surprise or didn't really, maybe Al Shabazz or somebody like that, but he had been off and on this roster throughout the season. So the Steelers defense, they do their job for the most part. The Browns were pretty good on third down efficiency throughout most of the game. They end up 8 for 15, 53% above the line, most of that in the first half, but only 3 of 6 in the red zone and really clamping it down at the end, forcing these turnovers. Like I said, Cleveland being Cleveland, even that hustle play with the offense coming, DHB knocking that ball back, you cannot make this type of stuff up. Interception, snap over the guy's head, fumble right as you're about to win the game. Fumble before you end up returning the ball for a pick six touchdown. This is just some of the, I think I said missed field goal already. I mean, this is just some of the stuff. This is why a bad team always bad teams find a way to be bad. And it seemed like almost every punt and kick return, the Steelers got to clean up some of the bad too, because there was quite a few penalties in this game. And in fact, the Steelers were penalized 9 times for 43 yards. So there was like an illegal shift, a false start. I know the one false start that sticks in my head was like Eli Rogers, 2 guys in motion on a illegal shift. These are the easy ones to fix. Some of the things that happen in a heat of battle, like a face mask or something like that, it's a little more forgivable. Even some of the holding can be a little more forgivable. But all of this stuff, as we see stalls plays, they just have to clean this up heading forward. So I'm still kind of shocked that the Steelers gave up 437 yards of offense to the Cleveland Browns. Some of that surprises me. Some of that doesn't. Defense does need to clean it up. But obviously, I think game balls that go around, and some people don't like to do this, and I don't think I've ever done this, but I mean, Landry Jones had a fantastic game. DeMarcus Ayers, Kobe Hamilton, all guys that stepped up. I'd already mentioned Ryan Shazier. I mentioned Sean Davis at points. I mean, Jarvis Jones off and on. John Maxey, too, had a up and down type game. The Steelers, all the sacks coming from, like I said, Davis. Dupree gets another one for 4.5. Of course, that's a career high. But look, 4.5 sacks in like less than half of a season for Dupree. That's pretty darn good. Dan McCullers, nearly swallows RG3. I thought the guy was going to get injured again. I just could not believe just how he blew through the line to get that one sack. Defense definitely stepped up in the second half. So Steelers going forward, I think this is important. The guys who were out there, they're excited to play. They were excited to have a win. And when these are the guys that are contributing in practice and don't necessarily get on the field a lot on game days, if at all, especially in like Landry Jones' case, and even B.J. Finney and a few others in that nature. Jarvis Jones completely inactive before like that. It's good. It's a good feeling to come away with a victory, a hard-fought victory. Initially, it said that this team deserved to lose, but I actually felt like the Browns ended up deserving to lose before it was over, coughing up the ball 4 times. All those opportunities to score and put the game away, put the game out of reach. And it was the Steelers' offense that came back 21 unanswered. It was the defense that started shutting down the Browns near the end and forcing these turnovers. That's a great team victory. And even with the guys that are sitting over on the sideline, everybody gets to share into this now. And instead of going into the playoffs with a loss, the Steelers now have their 7th straight. And it's got to be an infectious feeling, and it's a very good feeling to have. They're going to have a home game. They got to rest some starters, and they're going to be prepared for the Miami Dolphins. They're going to be playing with a backup quarterback. And having just been, I'm going to say, demoralized by the New England Patriots in this last game, they got to put that back in the back of their mind. While the Steelers, they're thinking all happy thoughts heading into Heinz Sunday at 1 o'clock. So, folks, until next time, look forward this week. We may have another bonus podcast for you. Thank you, everybody, for your comments that you leave everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatnot. Really appreciate it. If you're not already or haven't already, please leave a review. Particularly iTunes has the best review system when it comes to the podcasting, so really appreciate it. I see it there on the other platforms. I know not too many people are using those. It's cool. I mean, all the feedback, we definitely appreciate it. Everyone here at Steel City Underground appreciates it, and everybody here wishes everyone a happy new year, and it sure is happy if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Until next time, be safe, be good, and I'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.